What's going on, guys? Robert from Robert Was Here with a new MBTI video up, and this time we will be going over the judgment functions. Now, in the previous two videos, I've done the overview of judgment and perceiving functions, and in the video before this, I did perceiving in depth, so it's only fair that I do judgment in depth as well. So what is judgment exactly? So, judging is how you make decisions or essentially shut off information that you've perceived, which is why I put the perceiving video first so you can know what that was. So, what judges will do is after they get enough information, they're going to stop taking in information. They're like, I have come to a conclusion, I don't need any more information. So, on the outside, judges might seem like they're organized, like they know what they're doing. Pretty much it's that they feel confident that they have enough information and they're moving on. Now, some people new to MBTI will think that judging means that they're judgmental. But once again, it's not true. It's just something that someone came up with and it's stuck. It's pretty much BS. Now, there are two judging preferences here. And these are the ones that bring the most confusion. We have the thinking preference, which is based on logical analysis, and we have feeling, which people always think is emotions. No, feelings in MBTI is not emotions. It's based on values, beliefs, etc. So we're talking like social values, cultural values, so on and so forth. Personal values even. But not emotions. So if you're thinking, I don't have emotional outbursts, so I must be a thinker, that's not necessarily true. Or if you're thinking, I'm a feeler because I have emotional outbursts, once again, not true. It's based on values, beliefs, etc. So the first judgment preference is thinking. When you think about those who prefer thinking, they like to come up with ideas based on principles. And they have to logically make sense, kind of like cause and effect, pros and cons, etc., etc. There's a system that they're using, a framework that exists, and they like to work within that system instead of letting their personal values dictate what they should do or not. So let's say, for example, you have a friend who broke the law. A person who prefers thinking will be like, hey, you're my friend and we're cool, but just because my friend does not mean that you can break the law, so you should be punished. And because of this, thinkers might not really respect personal values, social values, etc. when there's a system in place that are supposed to govern, if you will. That's a way to think about it with thinkers. They like to work in the realm of logic. It's the same. It doesn't change. There's no special cases, no exceptions based on the individual's personal values, social values, or etc. They try to have things consistent. Your second preference is feeling. Contrary to popular belief, those who prefer feeling are not more emotional. You know, feeling and MBTI has its own framework that it uses, and it's about values, beliefs, etc. So, what those who prefer feeling are concerned with are either their personal values or social values. And these people will try to think about how their values will be affected by situations and how other people's values will be affected by situations. So in the same situation where you have like a friend who broke the law, a person who prefers feeling might side with the individual. I totally understand why you broke the law, and I think the law is unjust and we should try to do something about it. Kind of like in the example where you have a man who steals bread in order to feed it to his family. And do you think he's wrong or not? Well, a person who prefers thinking will be like, the laws are clearly cut out and he stole, so he's wrong. And for those who prefer feeling, they might be like, well, he's trying to provide for his family, so the law should bend a little bit. So this is what feelers pretty much think in a way. That's their rationale. And as such, when you ask them to explain some things for, I guess, the reasons behind some of their actions, it's really hard to justify it because it's not really based in the world of logic or objective logic, if you will. It's more so based on a world of subjective logic or a set of beliefs, values, etc. So that's pretty much what feelers are about. And how would you tell feeling and thinking apart? Now, this is how they claim to tell thinkers and feelers apart. And normally you'll hear something like, oh, if you're logical, you're a thinker. And if you're emotional, then you're a feeler. But that's not necessarily true. So, how would you tell someone who prefers the thinking versus someone who prefers feeling? Well, put them in a scenario to where they would have to fire somebody. And a thinker is going to think about a logical way for why they should fire someone. Let's say you have a quota that you have to meet at this company, like a sales goal, if you will. They'll look at the numbers and say, well, based on this individual's sales have been lacking, so logically, we should fire this person. And that's how they would justify their decision. Notice that their personal values are not included, or social values. That person they're firing, they could actually be their friend and they could like them. But because they're not objectively meeting the standard, they're like, hey man, you gotta go. We're gonna bring someone else in. Alternatively, if a feeler was going about to fire someone, they might fire someone who doesn't align with the values of the company. Now, if you've gone on a job interview or if you check like some websites, you'll see that the companies normally post like a list of words that are associated for what the company's personal values are. And a feeler might look at that list and say, who doesn't meet this criteria for personal values? And even if that person's sales are good, they might let them go if they don't align with the company's values, or if they're creating strife within the company. So I know you probably heard of a situation where you have someone really good come in, but everyone doesn't like them, and they will be at risk for being terminated because everyone doesn't like them or they don't follow the company's values. Now, a thinker will be like, hey, they're putting up the numbers, we should keep them. And that's that. But a feeler would be like, they don't go with the company's values, and even though they're meeting the numbers, we should let them go. And that's pretty much a thinking versus feeling preference collide right there. And you've probably seen that before. In the real world, you might have seen this with someone cheating in a relationship, in which case you might have in the relationship and you have someone whose values aren't being met or needs aren't being met, and then they cheat. And some people will look at that situation and be like, the person who cheated is wrong because they cheated. That's that. But other people might look at that as, well, their values weren't being met, their needs weren't being fulfilled, so they went to go look elsewhere. So it's justified. I'm okay with them doing that. And that's another way you might see thinking and feeling collide in the real world. Now, this is only if you stick to the original theory, though. Oh, wait, looks like we have a guest trying to cut in on us. Let's see what they have to say. Alright, guys, so if I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry, but this is important information. So, MBTI has its roots in psychology, with the subject and the object. And we're going to allow Cloud to explain that for us. Pretty much your hilt is introversion or subject-based. The guard is the barrier between the inner world and the outer world. The blade is object-based, and it's how you interact with the environment. Pretty much, you grab the hilt of the sword, and it's focused on you. So it's subject-based. And when you grab your sword, you're probably going to want to swing it at something. And when you're swinging the blade around to cut something, it's object-based. Because without the object, there's nothing to cut. And that simply explains introversion and extroversion. Alright, so how does introversion and extroversion affect the thinking and feeling preferences? Well, that's pretty easy, and I'm going to explain it to you. So you have extroverted thinking, or object-based thinking, where you place logic outside into the external environment. These might be individuals that organize where things are so they don't have to think about where things are. So then we also have introverted thinking, or subject-based thinking. And these are the people that try to have something make sense personally to them. These are the people that will take something, analyze it through and through, make sure there's no inconsistencies, and try to make sure that everything makes sense to them personally, although to other people around them, it might not make sense. And so for feeling, we have extroverted feeling, or object-based feeling, which would be object-based values, beliefs, etc. This is an individual that is more sensitive to the group values opposed to their personal values. And then with introverted feeling or subject-based feeling, that would be an individual who's more sensitive to their own personal values, beliefs, etc., instead of group values, beliefs, and etc. And my next video, we're going to be tackling the big one. We're going to be having our intro into cognitive functions. And I hope you guys are enjoying this journey, and I wish you luck as we advance forward.